Remember when we used to talk about the paperless office?
E-commerce?
Signing a contract on paper.
And even giving out an agent's pager number?
We're in a mobile world.
We're in a mobile world, and your business needs to be too.
It's a digital world.
Workflow is changing, and so too are our experiences.
There are over 350 PropTech players right now
Competing for the space.
How do you keep up with it all?
And what's next?
Welcome to Founders.
A new podcast with Josh Phegan
On the future of workflow in real estate.
We operate in a completely different world, and what we realise is that data is now equal, but relationships are not. How can you have really good quality relationships with the data that you've already got access to? What do you do to go and hunt and find those people that you really need to talk to? We've always driven past that listing that we'd love to list where it looks like it's a completely unloved home, but we don't know how to get in contact with that particular owner. We find out that there are specific people that we really want to go and target because maybe there's a specific government initiative. For example, for those people that are selling a property they've owned for more than 10 years who are over the age of 55 that might be able to sell without having to pay any additional funds when it comes to putting it into superannuation. There's lots of different challenges and there's lots of opportunities when it comes to data, but how do we actually build it and what do we do to work it? This is the great conundrum for any great real estate agent because in building data, there's a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. But what we ultimately find is that lots of people build data and then do nothing with it. So what do we do to work the data that we've already got? We've always been there where we've gone to have a look at a list of names and we go, we don't know them, they were ugly, I'm not calling them. But what would actually happen if you had real clarity about the types of people that you wanted to go after to have more powerful conversations to make sure that you can be a better real estate agent? Well, today we've got Danny and Rahul joining us from ID4ME. Guys, you're doing some pretty incredible stuff in this space. Danny, we're going to kick off with you. Let's talk a bit about it. Give me the elevator lift in under 30 seconds or so. What does ID4ME actually do for real estate agents?
Hi, Josh. Look, ID4ME actually allows a real estate agent to visualise the data immediately and to identify, segment, and just look at the intelligence of a consumer through the data set.
So, Rahul, what do you reckon? What's your 30-second uplift on that?
I think it allows an agent to be better in their job. I think it allows an agent to sell more. I think it allows an agent to build much better relationships with the current people they're working with and the area they want to dominate.
You know, the interesting thing is that when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is easy. If you can use Google, you can use this. And the basic idea is that literally you can go and type in, it might be a name, it might be a number, it might actually be an address. Go and press search and it will then tell you the contact details of the person who lives in that particular property if they've done any specific activities. Now, Danny, talk to us a little about it. How did you come up with this idea with ID4ME? What's the background?
So I'm a 35-year veteran in data. So
You must have started when you were 5, man.
Look, I love data. I know I'm a bit older than that, but I'm young at heart.
Yeah.
If anyone knows me. Look, my passion has always been about trying to work out what people are thinking. I'm always been trying to work out why someone would make a decision on a sale or on trying to identify something in particular. So for me, I'm one of the lucky ones that I've used my passion, and my passion has led me all the way through. So I love what I do. I love data, and I've always been involved in the data game. So in my early years, basically, growing up in Europe, I always was intuitive on how people responded, how they looked at you in the eyes and how you could get information from people. So as I got older, I became a private investigator. So as a private investigator, I didn't like following people around, but what I liked to do was identify people. So my job was to go out and identify people. So by identifying people, you have to know how to speak to them. You have to know how to get them to open up. You have to, use that. And then by doing that, I started amassing databases. So I used to buy databases, et cetera, for my own business. And then I started and I put it online basically in 2011 and had a few exits since. So look, we've been in the data game for a long time. Any company in Australia or internationally you can just think of, we've already supplied data to them. So ID4ME came because we wanted to do what's already out there but do it a lot better and use the tech behind it. So the whole plan was to start a business agnostic to an industry and see if we can actually deliver the solution, and we did.
Yeah, it's a great conversation because, you got to think about how much we've come along in the data journey. I remember being back in my dad's office, and back in those days, we used to actually get the details of all the property owners, all the ratepayers. Used to give out their contact details and their phone numbers, and you could just ring them direct. There was an era where we used to deliver the white pages out to the front of everyone's house, and actually you could just look up anyone's name and get their number unless they were privately listed. And then we kind of moved into this new space where it kind of went into this conversation around Privacy Act, do not call registers, the conversation around data protection, around privacy of the consumer, the rights to choose, all of the above. Tell us about what's actually happening in that space, because it's obviously presenting some pretty significant advances in the changes in the way that consumers use data.
So as a career-driven professional in data, I've always decided to protect the data of the individuals and businesses that we acquire. So what that means is we make sure that the people's identities are protected from any malicious use or things that we can't control as much as we can. Mm-hmm. So what we've done in that instance, we've made sure that, with the do not call register, for instance, you can't call someone that's on the do not call register. We wash that data every 28 days and put it back in. Mm-hmm. We make sure that we identify with different match processes so that we can publish the data. Otherwise, we don't publish the data. The other thing is, in 35 years, we've never been in front of a court to say on a complaint for a data privacy breach. So data to me is my life, and at the end of the day, I need to protect my assets, my workers, and every user out there, basically. So we've also now just undertaken the ISO 21007 certification, which is compliance in data aggregation and data globally. So we've just done our second audit, and we're just about to get our certificate. We should have it within 30 days, which certifies us as industry standard for data. The other thing we've also done is we've engaged a global law firm, one of the biggest in the world, for advice and on how people use ID4ME and is there any legal implications in using ID4ME. They look at the contracts that we've got, the vendors, the data that we acquire, the way we match it. They've looked at every single aspect of our business and given us the green tick, and we'll be publishing that pretty soon. So what we're trying to do is stay way ahead of the game, because we are the major data providers in Australia through marketing companies in the past, through other search businesses that I've had platforms. But like I said, we've supplied data to every single company in Australia. So if anyone calls you to sell your power, electricity, whatever, health insurance, they're using our data or data that we've sold our businesses before through acquisitions, etc.
And I think it's important to say, Josh, especially your audience, people take their data very seriously now. People take privacy very seriously now. And, we want to be the brand known to take that seriously for the customer. And we want to make sure that, the real estate agents who work with us, they know that they're covered. We've got their back, we've got the data consented. And when they're using us, they can be sure that, they're not going to get in trouble and their reputation's not going to be damaged in the market, because you don't want that. You don't want relationships and have a bad rep.
So to add to that, we also have appointed a cybersecurity firm globally, and they've done the pen testing and found no critical issues in people trying to attack our system. So, we're always staying ahead of the game as far as that's concerned also. We realise there's breaches that have happened for the bigger organisations, and we don't want any of our agents or any of our users in the 9,000-something subscribers to get into any trouble using our data. We want to be that business that they can rely on and depend on.
So this is a great conversation because, Rahul, we're going to talk about some business cases around how an agent actually uses it, right?
Yep.
Now, when we first met, my whole conversation was like, okay, well, what am I trying to do? And we've heard there are sections of the industry that really loves to go door knocking. Do you like to get up and go and do that? It's not really for me. I find it quite intrusive and quite interrupting. But off the back of that, how do we go to get access details for someone? So let's say, for example, you're selling a property. Let's call it Smith Street. And all of a sudden you go in and you type in Smith Street. It'll give you contact details of anyone who's in Smith Street that is actually opted in to receive some communications. Talk to us about that opt-in process. How does someone's detail end up on a system like this to make sure that it's meeting the requirements under Privacy Act, and obviously the conversation to make sure that we're meeting the requirements under the Do Not Call Register?
Yeah, so I think it's important to distinguish that first party consent and third party consent. First party is if they've reached out to you directly as an agent.
So in other words, went to an open for inspection,
Correct.
Gave their contact details.
Absolutely. And the third party would be where they've filled out a form somewhere else and they're happy to be have marketed to for any product and services. And that's when we get that data. We work with many vendors in the market. We make sure that data is consented. We verify that through different sources. We invest quite heavily in our databases. We go and verify it ourselves as well. And that's when the data ends up in the platform, and you can be sure that you can reach out to these people. And if there's someone you can't reach out to, we flag that right then in the system, so you across that. And agents love using the system, like you said about street search. You can do a street search. You can also narrow it down again by age filter as well. And an agent told me about this, and I love the fact that they can now start to look at, okay, so let's look at this particular age bracket, because they might be in the market to sell the house and buy a smaller piece of land or something else. So it's really, quite something.
So this is an interesting conversation because, Danny, there's been a lot of conversation that the data's been getting better. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to improve the quality of the data that sits inside of ID4ME.
Look, you can only buy so much data, and what we're doing to improve it, we've got our own teams that are live calling about 6 million records per annum. So we're updating those as live calls. In other words, these are people that have spoken to, that have validated their addresses, their names, their mobile numbers, etc., their emails, everything. So basically, the data in quality is getting a lot better because of the efforts that we're making internally as a business to make sure that we are validating the data. There's no other way you can validate the data apart from calling somebody. So we're experts at that, and this is what we're delivering back to the industry.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting tool for an agent because now all of a sudden you're starting to see some real innovation inside of the product. Rahul, do you want to talk to us a bit about that, the for sale and the for lease things and how that's working with the data of owners and people in an area?
Yeah, sure. I think since last time we had a chat, we've introduced all the listings as well. So if you use ID4ME, you can search in suburb or a street if you like, and you can see every property that's for sale. You can see every property that's for rent or just been rented out, or every property that's also been withdrawn. So the competitive advantage that gives you is quite immense because, you can really scan the area, see what's for sale, reach out to them, reach out to the neighbors, and that's how you build your profile with your core audience. So that's a big one for us. And we're now also going to introduce a lot more new features in the next 6 months, so we're excited about that as well.
And that's a great conversation for agents because, when I say, okay, great, build data, I tend to try to do it in a way that I'm going to maybe start with just listed. And I think that just listed is a great way to build a relationship, and just sold is actually the point where conversion or an appointment probably happens. So it's like, okay, great. We see a new listing that's just come on market, even if it's with a competitor. How do we ring the 10 houses either side and the 20 across the road? Hi, my name's Josh Phegan. Reason for my call today, I believe that you're the owner at number 12. I just wanted to give you a quick call because number 10 in your street has just been listed for sale. I was just wondering, would it be okay if I let you know when it sells and what it makes? Yep. And now all of a sudden I'm moving from that third party to first party authentication in terms of getting permission to be able to build a relationship with those people. Yep. When that one comes to sell, hey, by the way, it's now been sold, it made X. Quick question, what does that mean your place is worth? Would it be of value for me to pop down and give you a bit of an idea on what it's worth? Now this is like such a really easy process to go and do, but what you're now doing is you're building that data and you're learning how to go and work it. And if you go and have a look at some of the best in our industry, they are absolutely phenomenal around being relevant to the existing people that they've already got inside of that particular marketplace. So this is really important for an agent who wants to build market share. Maybe, for example, you want to increase your average sale price. You might start to do more of that around the streets where there's more expensive homes. So naturally, you're getting involved with more of the people that have got more discretionary wealth, and hopefully might even have some investment properties that can still come and buy one of the cheap ones off you as well and sell a nice expensive one, maybe where Danny lives, as a part of that conversation. Hey, Danny, this is an important conversation around learning how to be relevant. There's no doubt that sometimes when you get on a phone call that, you might get some people that my dad has always said that may have forgotten to take in their medication. Like sometimes you get on the phone and you ring them. And I think it's always about the approach of how you got to make the call. If I was ringing you and I didn't know you, I might actually have that conversation and say it that way. So, hi, is that Danny? Danny, it's Josh Phegan. We haven't had the opportunity to meet us yet. I've been trying to track down your details. I believe that you're the owner at number 10. Is that correct? The reason for it is that we've just listed number 12 and we thought you'd want to know about that on the off chance that maybe you wanted to buy it, add it to your portfolio, do something else as a part of the conversation. Danny, what are your thoughts about, because you've got a real presence around how you make a call and how you got to think that, doing right is doing well. What would you do? Do you imagine the person on the other side of that phone before you get in to go and making that call?
Yeah, I do. Because it's about respecting the data and the privacy of the individual. So if you can just imagine that that's someone that you know, or a parent or an uncle or something, and then you want to talk to them, but you're actually going to be calling them when you shouldn't be calling them, then you will think twice about it. So it's about respect of the data, respect of the individual. And, there's always the next neighbour. If one's on the DNCR, there's always the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
That's not on the DNCR. So, you sometimes, yes, you want to be, bullish and try to call everybody. Sometimes you just can't.
And this is an interesting conversation. What happens if you get someone who goes, well, how'd you get my details? Because that could happen, right? And sometimes you hit someone who's a bit aggro and maybe you just hit them at the wrong day or the wrong stage of life or something's just happened. What do you do in that case?
Look, we tell all our clients just to forward it to us. ID4ME, we've got our privacy officer that would run with that and would explain to the people how we got their data, because the data's date stamped. It's got IPs from when the consent was made. It's also got why they consented, which we don't share on the platform. That's very sensitive data, and so we can provide that, and we do provide that back to the individual if they ask for it. Sometimes they just say remove my details, which is fine. Sometimes I say how did you get it, because I just want to remove myself from everywhere, and that's fine again. So we've got, the origination of the data, of all our data.
And just adding to that, as a real estate agent, please be honest. I think there's nothing worse than you call someone, they've asked you a question and you're now trying to backtrack your way out of it. We back our data. You're working with us, we'll back you as well. Do the right thing. Tell them where you get the information from. And if they are on Do Not Call registry, don't call them.
Founders is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. When we were setting out to go and create Josh Phegan Digital, we just had this whole idea that we wanted training to be on demand. And everything in our life is on demand. We just press play inside of the Netflix app. We press play on YouTube, play on Spotify. Why couldn't we just press play on training? And what we decided is we want to be super relevant to real estate agents so that in under a couple of minutes each day, if you wanted to, you could upskill and you could grow in new ways. And so we decided that we were going to release this thing that we called The Edit, which is basically the latest in property news stories that's happening every week right the way around the country. So you could be incredibly sharp in your conversations with sellers. And then we built out the short courses, which was all about rapidly building skills, whether or not it's about learning how to get better fees or to put on an assistant. And then we actually wanted to give you access to blueprints, so you didn't have to wait for it every year. You could just watch it whenever you wanted and actually go from zero to hero around everything that it takes, from goal setting, self and energy management, what you're doing around prospecting, listing, negotiation, and actually just have a system for the way that you work. Together with, getting really inspired by some of the best people in the industry with the black and white interviews. Josh Phegan Digital is available on iOS and also on Android. It's an incredible app and it gives you everything that you'll need to be a much better agent. It's time to switch on. Yeah, sure. So I think that's that basic idea. We're actually a subscriber to ID4ME. It's a database where you've given third-party consent for people to give you a quick call. If you wanted to be removed from that, I can put you in contact with the guys to be able to do that straight away. But also, too, it would be important to add yourself to the Do Not Call register, because it seems as though that is not registered in the system, that you've done that. And that's a really important part. Danny, your thoughts?
Look, from the metrics that we see, so we're getting about 110,000 to 120,000 separate searches a day. So we're scaled very, very highly, and that's increasing. We probably get one or two people ask a month, where'd you get my data from? So it's not a huge issue.
And so a lot of this is about your own fear. It's like I created that issue myself rather than actually really doing it. And that's about, just get on the phone, do the call. And I think that it's about getting the purpose of the call right too, right? So if you're just ringing up and go, do you want to sell? No. Do you want to sell? No. Do you want to sell? No. Well, of course, literally you're going to upset people pretty quickly if you keep on doing that all the time. But if you're ringing with information and things that are actually of value, that one's just been listed. Hey, there's just been a sale. What does that now mean your place is worth? Any chance I could come and see you? Would it be of value if I could give you a quick call? Would it be of value if I can send you that report on sales in your area? Whatever it is, you got to go and build that relationship.
And in my past life as a private investigator, we knew that the way you speak to someone over the phone is the attitude you're reflecting.
Yeah.
So you knew the only way I can get information off someone is actually by being nice and coming to their level.
Yeah,
So when you say, can I get you interested in this, and you're hard, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
You need to use what you're just saying, reflect back on the conversation. What's the goal? Try to get it nicely.
And I love that. I've been using a lot of that language recently of any chance and what would it take. So Danny, any chance I could get you come and have a look at next door when it's open tomorrow? Hey, what would it take for me to have the chance to be able to walk through your place and give you an idea on what it's worth? And it's more aspirational, it's more ambitious, and it's more like putting the control in the client so they feel in control of actually taking the appointment and making that happen. So what I always say to people is that, hey, before you got to make a call, get clear on the purpose, write down the dialogue, practice it a couple of times, play it out, record it, play it back. If you wouldn't buy from you, then don't expect someone else to buy from you. Rahul, you've seen some pretty amazing things that's happening in terms of platform on how people are using it. What are some of the more unique types of searches that you're seeing people that are doing apart from just listed and just sold? Is it around specific properties? Is it around specific age groups and demographics? Is it around particular areas that they're trying to grow into?
Yeah, I think we're always learning from the agents. I think they're the best teachers for us right now. We're seeing the guys use data a lot with age brackets right now. They want to go after younger people because they now have a brand new apartment building that's going up. They want to sell those things. We're seeing people going after certain age brackets, a little bit older, maybe 80 plus. There's the houses that they want to potentially buy for a builder and knock it down. So age is a big one. The guys love to use it because we have actual date of births available as well. And then what else, Danny?
Look, some of the use cases I've heard recently, some of the agents that said out of every 20 emails they send, they get one appraisal using ID4ME targeted. Mm-hmm. Very, very clever. Mm-hmm. The other one was, I've had people come up to me and say, I went down the street and, I'm calling and I'm diligent and I got 2 appraisals out and 2 listings out of one street after a sale of a property. Mm-hmm. So I think it's, we're finding that some of the agents who really want to use it properly will always get a great result out of it.
And I'm seeing people kind of using it in a bit of a reverse directory point of view. So they've got a buyer coming through and open for inspection. They get a mobile number and they haven't got the details on where that person might live or whether or not they own any residential real estate. So they're doing the reverse where they're searching for the phone number and that's then bringing up the residential address. So it gives them a bit more of a clue if they're local or not. The other conversation is that the same again around an email address when they get those email inquiries of what's the price guide on this one? All of a sudden putting that email in, you can do that inside of Google, come up to a certain point if they're in a public type company, but putting them into a position that ultimately if they've got that listed, then it will come up there. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, and also property managers, we're starting to see a big uptake on that because we got court data now, or we had it actually for a while, and you can go back to 15, 20 years and you can see if someone's been to court for any reason whatsoever, and you're starting to see, okay, well, these guys took the previous owner to the court, so maybe, think about it a little bit more. So that's a really good one. And also we're seeing a lot of females who do door knocking. They look at the court data, they just check someone out, look at their address before they knock on the door. They feel a little bit more comfortable doing that as well. So that's a really good one that market's telling us really. It's
So, Danny, one of the great conversations is about the power of search because you can search on a lot of things and you can put very specific things into that search. Tell us how that actually works and how powerful that can be.
So traditionally, database is a single search. So you put Mr. Danny, Georgakilas in different boxes. So what we did, we created the Google-style search at the top. And what it does, it gives you that single line where it says Danny Georgakilas at this address, my mobile, my email, DNCO, all that sort of stuff. So that's your first line. Once you drop into that, you can drop on the left-hand side, there's a drop down. It goes straight into property data. Is he an owner? How many bedrooms? When was it last sold? How much? How big the land size is, etc. It's also got the Google Street View, so you can actually you can have a look at the property before you even call the people to see what quality it is, etc. live. And then we drop down from there. We go into their socials, so you can say Danny Georgakilas is an owner of companies, etc. Director, CEO. So you already know that. Hey, if I talk to this guy, he's got the money to buy what I'm trying to sell. Mm-hmm. Right?
Or he's got the title.
And then it drops down again. Then it goes into the court records.
Yep.
And then you can see the court records, and then drops down again, and it goes into ABA if they own any businesses. Mm-hmm. So you're linking through social media, but we also go linking through businesses. And if we've linked a business, it actually goes to their website of their business. So a lot of commercial agents now have started using ID4ME. Mm-hmm. They've found a way of how to use ID4ME. So the search platform is dynamic. You can search anything. You can just click on a mobile number to tell you where that person's been for the last 10 years, where they've lived, who they live with. So it's very, very strong and very powerful for any agent to use. And the more creative they become, the better they become at getting listings out of it.
And this is such an important conversation, isn't it, about actually understanding, how do you actually track down and find that particular owner? I was working with an agent who does a lot of apartment sales, and he says, you know what, apartment owners don't want to be found. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Now you actually can be in a position that you can go and search. How many records are sitting inside of that system? How many Australian consumers have given consent around mobile numbers as a part of that conversation?
Look, there's different. Look, over the past, there's consents that are implied consents, auto-consented, and third-party consents, right? Mm-hmm. And first-party. Our historical and current data is about 600 million records. Mm-hmm. Our current data sits at about 18 million. Mm-hmm. about 6 or 7 to 8 million mobiles, about as many emails, and probably 5 million landlines.
Wow. It's pretty crazy when you think about that. And when you keep on, you're now talking about additional things that are happening, like where people are washing data. Can you talk to us about how washing data actually works and what you're seeing as some of the early outcomes of some of those initial trials?
Yeah, sure. I think, every single agent out there has got 10, 20, 30, 40,000 records sitting there. They've never been washed. It's just data sitting there that's coming from any inquiry, inbound, any mail campaign that they've done, and any presentation, etc. So we take that data, we match it, we tidy it up, we add more information, fill in the blanks really. They got the email, they don't have the mobile. They have the mobile, they don't have the email address, the up-to-date address, things like that. So when we do that, that goes back into the CRM systems. We work with some partners who help them do that. And the power of that is just amazing. What we've seen in this gentleman invested tiny amount of cash with us, got the data, got 18 listings out of that in 2 months, I believe. I couldn't believe it. So it's doing wonders for guys. The data they're sitting on right now, just tidy it up.
Yeah, look, the mature operators are really taking advantage of it, and they're washing everything that they've had in their systems, and they're getting their other offices to wash it. And so now we're seeing probably it's been growing by 20% per month, the data washing. So, and it's a really good product. But that coupled with ID4ME for your dynamic search, it's gold.
So it's an interesting thing, because you hear a lot of real estate agents that are very proud about the size of the database that they've built. But again, if they're not using it, it's really not of much value. And, I, for a long time, I spent a lot of time with people just trying to get them to call back past clients. It's like, Danny's already spent $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 with you in selling 2 properties with you over time. Why wouldn't you ring him? Or naturally off the back of Rahul's just bought a property from you 3 years ago. Why wouldn't you ring him? And a lot of that is about the mental headspace of, I couldn't ring him because there's no way I could sell it for the same price he paid for it. Or I couldn't ring him from 2 years ago because I don't want to be too salesy. Or I don't want to ring him from 3 years ago because I was a bit funky during COVID. I don't want to ring him from 5 years ago because what happens if he won't remember me? All of those are internal barriers. And what we're now talking about is that if you really think about that opening quote today, that data is equal but relationship is not, how do you actually now go to build relationship with the data that you've already got? So you can improve the quality of that data with the email addresses and the mobile numbers. You can improve the quality of the search that you're doing to become more relevant to keep people inside of a marketplace. And the old days of having to literally go door to door to try to get contact numbers and do it over and over and over again are gone. And you're now in a position that you're operating in a digital environment. And it's those who make the calls first that are the ones that are ultimately going to go and win.
100%. I think just on that, Josh, I don't like to use the word disruptor, but seriously, those days are gone where you're sitting on this big book of customers that you've had for the last 15 years. You have ID4ME and sort of 5 other agents, same area. The person who picks up the phone will get the business.
Correct.
So when you think about best practice, how long does it teach to train someone how to use the system? What do you do for agents if they wanted you to give a quick demo to either the office or at a sales meeting? How does that work?
We do all of that. So, if they want a team demo, we can do that for them. We have salespeople. If they want to sign up and then get a demo after using it for a couple of days, we can do that as well. We normally call every single person who signs up online. We're going to start doing road shows as well. So just go office by office, make sure we do a demo for everyone in person if that's what they want to do. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we found a lot of people have said, oh, yeah, my mate had it and now I've got it and I love it. And we've said, well, do you know that it does these features? Oh, no, I didn't know that. So I was like, well, maybe you should call the office and get our customer success manager to give you a demo. And they're doing that. So they're starting to get more awareness of the product and how to use it properly. So,
and I think the other key thing is that because there's continuous improvement and, we were talking a little bit off mark about some of the roadmap of what's happening over the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah. It's a pretty exciting time for what you're going to be doing with data at ID4ME. And I think this whole conversation is it's now ready for you as an agent to start to do it. We're going to put you both on the hot coals. So we're literally going to ask a couple of tough questions and see what you go. Danny, there'll be a group of people, as there always is in an industry, that are a little bit conservative in nature and they're not necessarily comfortable with how the new world is emerging, about the freedom of information, the access to details. What are some of your thoughts about them? Literally, you've got to get into the new world, obviously, but understanding, is it just time to realise that we're in the middle of a revolution in terms of data? Yeah,
I think, good question, because I think they need to realise that, you've got to follow the pack. The pack is digital.
Sure.
Okay, we all know that. ID4ME, there's 1 in 5 agents using it in Australia at the moment, and that's growing. So, and we're agnostic. We're not only real estate. We cater for a lot of industries. And at the end of the day, they've got to embrace technology. They have to. If they want to keep door knocking and keep doing mail drops, they can, but you don't need to. And you can actually have immediate data at your fingertips, like straight away.
So, there's been some terms that were literally coming around, and we started to hear like data lakes, where ultimately all of the data is actually coming together and combining and giving you a better view of the customer. And we have like the 360 view of the customer or the one view of the customer and learning that. Is this just another way of actually saying, well, hang on a second, this is where it really sits, is that all this data is coming to one place and now you can get a better view of that customer? Is that an easy way for someone to understand who doesn't necessarily have to go to the detail of how data works?
Correct.
And this kind of an interesting conversation is to realise that, we've got silos of data that sit inside of a real estate business, right? So let's go through a couple of them. Landlords, archive landlords, tenants, buyers, sellers, and potentially they're sitting in at least two different CRMs. So one a property management one and one a sales one. So if a landlord walks through an open home, you don't know they're a landlord. And if an archive landlord walks through an open home, you don't know they're a landlord. And if they're a tenant, you don't necessarily know they're a tenant. But yet you're sitting on all of this data at your own office. And that's the bizarre thing about it, is that you've actually got access to data. So I often go in and say, okay, great, what are the data sets that I've got to play with before I can go anywhere else? And so, okay, how many archive landlords have you got? Oh, I don't know. Well, that's about 10% of all property managements are archived every year. So if you've got 1,000 properties underneath your rent roll, it's about maybe 100 landlords that you lose every year. Times that by 10 years, there's 1,000 people. Where do they live in terms of their principal place of residence? Let's go and have a conversation about that from a sales point of view. So respectfully, I'm not even going to ID4ME at that point, but I'm just going like guys, this is where you've got to get with the data revolution, that you've already sitting on these mountains of data sitting inside of your business. But if you're not going to do anything with that and you get really excited about hunting new, you can actually do it better and faster and easier with a more integrated search that pulls all of that data that you need that's sitting out there inside of the marketplace, and that you've got heaps and heaps of different data centers that are helping to combine in this one data source that's it's constantly getting validated and refreshed and updated and washed to make sure that you've got the best available information that you can to get in contact with buyers, sellers, tenants, landlords, people that own, people that live in a particular building, and see the history about what's actually happening on that particular property. It's a pretty exciting wave to get on. Rahul, I guess that there's an interesting question. How long does it take to produce a list of people to go and call? And literally, is that hard for someone to learn? Like, I'm a bit old school. Like, how come it's not on an app? Why do I have to be on a desktop? What does that mean?
I think in regards to the app, Danny wants to promise us all that he's going to deliver in 6 months. So that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
I promise.
Yeah. But I think it is very easy now for a new agent to get 1,000 points we talk about of data, to get that together for an agent who's been in the market for a while, to get a refresh on their database and to really start to understand their market properly. You can do a street search, you can do an address search, you can do a suburb search if you want to. It's really up to you how detailed you want to go, and get as much information as you want.
I can see a great little fact sheet, like great searches to do.
Yeah.
Which actually just gives people ideas as a part of that roadshow and innovation on things that you can use product for. Once people feel really confident about it, then they'll just jump in straight away. Danny?
I think if you use the data and you treat it like, say, other industries in the marketing space that we provide data to, and the way they use the data, they look at trigger events. Mm-hmm. So a trigger event is someone's birthday. Mm-hmm. It's someone's child turning 18 or 25. It's you've got all that data at your fingertips. Now, if you can work out, like you said, your archive landlords, and find out who they are today, where they are, who's living in that family, how old are these children, you can sell to them, or you will sell them. We're going to have alerts sooner or later on the system. Mm-hmm. So this is agent feedback coming back to us, what they want. So they want us to have alerts. Say if I've contacted someone, they said, call me back in a month or 2 months, we'll put an alert there and an app, and it'll just come up and say, you need to call Josh again. Mm-hmm. You spoke to him about this. It'll be drop down what you spoke about, etc. So we'll have all that stuff. So the functionality is going to change. I mean, the system won't change, but the functionality will add a lot more functionality that's real estate centric, because we were not real estate centric when we began this business. We were more banking and finance, debt collection, investigative, all that stuff. And then we, by design came into the real estate industry, and we've been told now that we're a prop tech. So we thought we were a data tech business, and now we're being told we're Australia's quickest growing prop tech, which is fantastic. So now we're skewing all our resources to real estate agents.
Yeah. I think this is a really important conversation. Is that what you've got to realise is that now more than ever before, you've got a lot of consumers that are doing transactions. How do you get in front of the right people at the right time? And you know what? With a bit of nous, You absolutely do it every day of the week. And that's the important conversation. You know, I was only going past a property I happen to live in Balmain the other day, and it's just been completed being built. And I thought, geez, I wonder if they're going to come up for sale, because if that one comes up for sale, I might have a crack at that. And I literally took a photo of it and sent it to my local mate who's an agent. I said, hey, do you want to track this one down for me? He's like, oh man, I don't know when I'm going to go and door knock that. I'm like, come on, man, get up with ID4ME. This is time for you to go and get the phone number, make a quick call. I'll do it for you, and I'll take the commish, right? But it's about that whole conversation. It's about learning it. Guys, if they wanted to find out more information about ID4ME, where would they go, and how quickly could they get set up on the system? ID4ME.biz. Go set up yourself if you wanted to. It takes you about a minute. Put your information in, you have access. And any locking contracts? Am I there for 10 years, or how does it work? As long as you want to. It's month on month. We don't do the locking contracts. We understand the industry is quite, so no locking contracts. Quite fluid. Well, Danny and Rahul, so great to have you on the podcast today. Great to have your support, and it's amazing what you're doing for the industry. Thanks for the opportunity for what you're doing to be able to help agents get access to those owners that they need to, and to be able to make sure that there's a better way to actually prospect around what's been listed, what's been sold, key people in a street, and going after those owners that you can't find anywhere else. Just to ask the question, could we be of service in being able to help you in either buying, selling, or leasing out your existing residential property? Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you.